Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to our professional development this afternoon. We've got a couple of people coming in. Good to see you, Gina. And I'd like to welcome you this afternoon to Meeting Participant Needs. This is just a great opportunity for us to gather, and I hope and I appreciate you all taking the time, and I hope that you'll find the information very valuable. And really, we wanted to focus on Michigan Rehabilitative Services and some of the wonderful work that they do and some of the great resources that they have available for you all and the different clients, participants, and students that you're working with. So welcome as you come on in. If you wouldn't mind, just in the chat box, putting your name, your program, and your PIC if you need sketches for today's presentation. We are recording today's presentation. So we will be able to send this back out to you if you want to use it as a resource and have access to some of the information that we're talking about. But again, just welcome everyone this afternoon as you're coming in. Put your name, your program, and your PIC in the chat box if you can. That will help us to keep attendance and record those of you that need to get sketches. And I hope that you'll really take the time this afternoon. I know that it's crazy and things are extremely busy in all of our different programs. But I hope that you'll take this next 50 minutes or so really to just concentrate and be focused in on the work that we have done and the presentation that we have available for you today. And again, please always, be engaged. Many of you know some of our presenters, and it's always just great to see faces and be able to have that interactive piece, and they're willing to take questions and be very open to what you all want to kind of the course and trajectory that you'd like to take today's presentation. And I will say that we worked very hard to develop our professional development calendar this year. And part of that was an emphasis on diversity and inclusion and making sure that that's a key component of all of our professional development offerings this year. And that directly aligns with Michigan Rehabilitative Services, and particularly in October, which is Disability Employment Awareness Month. And so we felt that this was a very timely conversation for all of us to have. So with that, I'd like to welcome our two presenters this afternoon. We have Ugi Lamar, who is the director of the Kent ISD Adult Education Program. Ugi's got extensive experience as a principal and educator. He was most recently at Wyoming Public Schools. And he also has background and experience working at admissions at the post-secondary and higher education level. Charlene Organ is the business rehabilitation consultant for Michigan Rehabilitative Services. She's also worked at MRS as a vocational rehabilitation counselor and at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So between the two of them, they have a vast amount of experience working with marginalized populations, working with clients and students and participants that have a variety of different needs. And through their work and just the people that they are, they've really dedicated their careers to helping those individuals. So I would just like to welcome them and thank them for being with us this afternoon. And as I transition, I'll stop sharing. I'll transition to the slideshow. And I don't know if Charlene and Ugi, if you want to just introduce yourselves as well.
Yeah, Patrick, if you want to start the PowerPoint, we can kind of go through. I just want to say thank you to my good friend Charlene. Over the last year or so over here in West Michigan, we found ourselves in the same meetings for months and months and months. And so struck up a conversation and wanted to look at ways that we can have and build a true partnership between our adult ed services and what Charlene and MRS does. And so again, I just want to thank her for being such a good friend and partnering. And we've been able to do a lot of things pretty smoothly. And so, Charlene, you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ugi. I've been appreciating our relationship over the last year as well. It's been fun to have it continue to grow even during the midst of COVID. I feel like we have more inside jokes and more things going on. So it's been fun. And then pulling Patrick into our duel. So it's been fun. It's been a great opportunity to provide some education out in the community about MRS services and the great work that adult community education is doing in Kent County in this area. And so it's been wonderful that it's continued, because so many different things, as you move forward in this, it's been hard to keep things going. But I feel like you're a really good communicator, and I appreciate you having me today and talking about how we've been able to do things, but then also give some education, like Patrick said, in reference to people with disabilities. So I hope you find this educational today as well.
So Patrick, just in a way to welcome and find out everybody who's here, this is something that I usually do with my presentations, and have us really get a chance to go around and introduce ourselves. And so if you can look at the screen there, the question that I posed there is, how would you currently describe your agency's relationship between your adult education programs and MRS? I think for me, I'm up in the upper left-hand corner, just in love with the things that are going on between Charlene and I, and our agencies. For some of you, it might be, I think on the bottom left is maybe like a bridge to nowhere. And that may be how you're feeling with your current relationships. Up in the right-hand corner, maybe you just need some help. She may not be crying for help, but she is asking for help in that side. And other folks are just doing real well. Things are okay, and are here just to learn maybe what we're doing or some different tricks that we're going on. And so I'm just going to toss it out. Be ready, Cheryl, and maybe introduce yourself and tell us how you feel right now with your agency, and then I'll let you toss it to someone else.
Do you want us to, did you say you wanted someone else to go, or did you?
Yeah, you can go next. I was gonna have Cheryl go next, but you're live and on, so why don't you introduce yourself there and tell us how what one of these pictures most describes your relationship. Cheryl, you're muted. I don't know if you're talking or not, but there you go.
Muted, right?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so which one describes us? I think we meet up quite a bit. We could do better, but this woman comes to our place frequently and addresses our students and looks at what their needs are. And they, we exchange information, testing information, that sort of thing. And I think we do a pretty good job.
Awesome. Ms. Harper Kirkland, how about you?
Yes. Hi, I'm Gina Harper Kirkland with Southwest Economic Solutions in Detroit, Michigan. And we actually started a relationship with our MRS representatives in the area, but then COVID happened because she was actually going to come one day a week, work in our office for those students who wanted to work with her. But then it just kind of got crazy, but we still have a connection. So I would say it's between the thumbs up guy and the two groups of people with the abyss. Is like a combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. Ms. Roberts, how about you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My experience with MRS is for my, of course, my special ed students are usually try to open up an account if I'm talking about the right people. And then it just helps them get into training and programs that otherwise they wouldn't be able to get into.
I noticed that yours says help. Do you need help or like connection? Do you have a connection there?
We have a connection, but it's indirect. It's indirect, so which is, it works, but I just think we should be doing more.
Oh, okay. What location are you in?
Port Huron.
Port Huron. Okay.
I see in the chat there, Renee, are you with us? Are you on the iPhone?
I am, so I'm not sure if I'm coming through. Can you hear me, Oogie?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm in a car right now. I am hopefully still there. My phone, I hope, isn't going to die. I would say we're doing pretty good. So we're in Romulus. Our local MRS is in Wayne. And we just started reaching out to them as all of this happened. So I would give us, the 2 thumbs up, but we're just getting started. So I definitely don't feel the gap in the bridge or the heart or the help. I think we're in a good place. I just need to reach out and we need to do more. But I'm interested to learn more about what MRS can offer today. So thanks for shouting out to me.
Good seeing you. How about, let's see who's next. Cheryl?
I thought I already gave my opinion.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, we could use help, I know that, but right now, Liz came on campus, Liz Fisher, and then we were told later that day she can't come on campus during this time anymore, during COVID. So just, and she's working from home, so we just, but she does a good job in staying in touch with us. But before this, she would come and do presentations to all the students. And she has them as, most of them have the case opened with her. So we share a lot of information.
Diane, how about you next?
Yeah, I came on this to hopefully learn more and open some doors. I've referred students to them in the past, and I know that they've had success with that, but I have not dealt with them directly. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that this will be a good learning experience for me.
I hope so too. What area are you in, Diane?
Adult education, so GED, high school diploma, career coaching. And what area I'm working out of? Comstock Park, like area geographically, are you asking?
Yes, yep. No, that was exactly what I was asking for in terms of Comstock Park. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you so much.
How about Shauna next?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am actually not in an adult education program. I work with EDSI, which is this, we're working with the state,
Gotcha.
workforce development around professional development. So I'm really on this to learn more about kind of what the relationship looks like. I did a lot of work with Indiana's Department of Workforce Rehabilitation. So I'm really excited to see what you guys are doing on the ground level. So thank you.
All right, welcome. Thank you. Karen, I see you there. How about you next?
Yeah, so I definitely am the person who is in the top right with the help sign, because I have never made contact with them. I've tried a couple times. I know that the office is located in the Livonia, Michigan Works office, but I've had some struggles with the Livonia, Michigan Works office as well. And then, of course, COVID, like you guys said, has come into play right when I'm trying to work at getting a partnership going for us to have some teachers on site. So it's definitely on my to-do list. But like everybody else, I just want to hear ways and expectations and what services there are, I guess.
Okay, is there anybody that I forget? I got kind of COVID brain as I kind of went through the pictures here, but anybody who hasn't had a chance to share? All righty, Patrick, could you pass that next slide then? This is a great part of the presentation where I get to step back a little bit and Charlene can share what she's doing. Go ahead, Charlene.
Yeah, so just to recap of what Michigan Rehabilitation Services, who we are and what we do, our vision is to serve a diverse and inclusion workforce that unites both businesses and individuals with disability towards a common goal. So what that means is that we can work with people who are employed as well as people who are not employed, and help them retain employment on the job, but then also help them find a job that's suitable for them. And so part of that would include employment readiness, job development, job coaching, medical durable equipment. That is like, so like a lot of you were asking, like, I'm not really sure what type services we do or what we provide. I mean, this is just a straight up list, and we'll get more into them in a minute as we go through, but we really help we provide support services for people with disabilities to help them be successful in their career. Medical durable equipment, what that is like hearing aids, CPAP machines, visual assistive technology, that type of stuff, to help them maintain their employment or even find employment. Or if they're in school, right, maybe they are struggling with learning and they're needing some assistance with that. And so we have two sides of the house, much like Michigan Works. So they have the customer service side and the business service side. And a lot of the services are free and available as long as the person's interested and willing to get set up with MRS. And that might be why Oogie and I have had such success, because I feel like I'm in the business service side. And so when I was reaching out to businesses before COVID and during COVID, like in the heat right now, they're needing talent. And so I was like, I need to help businesses get connected to talent, not only with my customers at Michigan Rehab, but then also extend that out into the community. And so in that regard, we've been able to help educate and work together and kind of create other different programs for businesses and our customers. So hopefully that gives you an idea. That's just a basic overview of what we're going to talk about today.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
This may seem like a dumb question, but
no.
So you're explaining how you help businesses and people with disabilities get basically employment. So is part of that vision of they're getting their employment covered for adult education? So if I have someone who comes into my program and they don't have a job yet, is it appropriate to reach out to you guys to get what it is they need for pursuing their education?
Yes, especially if they're struggling.
Right.
In the Grand Rapids office, we have a tutor. Some places have tutors. We have MCTI, Michigan Career Technical Institute. They've gone virtual. And so they have jobs. They have educational supports there too. I mean, I know you guys have educational supports as well. But sometimes they have that remedial, so we can do like an assessment and see what it is that they're needing. So maybe a program for like dragon speaking will help them dictate their words or their paper, or you know what I mean? And that's stuff that we help. It's assistive technology piece, because we're part of the workforce, the WIOA, we're part of that. And so most of we have, substantial gainful employment, but then we also have all the MSGs, the measurable skill gains that we need to meet. And so more now than ever, a lot of those assistance is coming through to help with that. Does that answer your question?
It does, but it brought another question up. So you mentioned assessments. So if we have participants that we suspect might have a learning disability, do you have the type of assessments that would help us pinpoint that?
Yeah, we can do that. A lot of times people don't have documentation of what their disability is, or they do. Maybe it's an IEP from like 5 years ago, or maybe it's from 10 years ago, or maybe they can't find their IEP. Chances are, if we are meeting with an individual who's struggling in school, more than likely they'll probably struggle on the job. And so like our goal overall is to help increase those opportunities. And a lot of times we have to, increase those accommodations and stuff within the school, so then that way they can be successful in employment. And to also make sure that the student knows that they're getting an accommodation. Like if you're allowing a student extra time on the test, let them know that they're being allowed extra time, because once they get into the workforce, if they don't know that they're allowed extra time, then it could make them, you know, not be as fast in the workplace.
Charlene, there's a message in the chat. Age restrictions at all? Is there an age limit for folks that you can help?
No. We start serving people at 17, 16 years of age. So that's the only age limit, really. You know, if you think about work, you know. So yeah, MCTI though is a wonderful place. I love that place as well. And the average age there, it's just the average age. Like if you were to live on campus, we are at half capacity on campus right now. The average age is about 24. And so sometimes, you know, like your 40s and 50s, you know, people that are not in their 20s have a difficult time because they don't want to stay in the dorms. But you can drive there. But yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, so so if we don't have any more, then maybe we can move on to the next slide where we do post questions. So yeah, so when you hear the word disability, what do you think? Or how many people do you think you know have a disability that you work with?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot too. We have forms that someone can ask the questions to the participant, and then there is a person, I can't remember what office we work with, but it's a person who can actually do a shorter test for disabilities.
Good.
Gina said most of our students and many IEPs there. And then another question they said, what's the difference between Michigan Works and MRS?
Michigan Works serves people who are looking for employment. They have a lot of different programs too, but we service people with disabilities. So a lot of times if Michigan Works is working with somebody and they're having some struggles, or essentially like we can only work with people who have a documented disability. They can work with other people as well. But a lot of times our services are the same, but ours are more, they're more one-on-one. Like we understand that we have to look at the person's functional limitations or abilities or capabilities to help them find an employment goal that's more suitable for them. So a lot of times what we're doing is we're really looking at what the person can do, and then what accommodations or services that we can get them to help them be more successful. So it's a little bit more, I would say, you know, if you talk to anybody in the community, you know, Michigan Rehab historically does take a little bit longer. You know, it's a process. Whereas in Michigan Works, you can go in there, you can say, you know, I want a job, I'm looking for this, and then they give you that, or you can find that, or, you know, where us, if you come to us, we're going to see like, okay, well, what do you need? Or, you know, what type of employment are you looking for? Is this employment suitable for you? You know, so it's a little different in that regard. So, yeah.
All right. In the chat, I think it's Renee, and Renee has said, I think of a disability as a difficulty, something that requires accommodations. And then also in the chat, Cheryl was a special ed teacher for decades, so she frequently sees a lot of her students, and some of the students have some struggles with learning appropriate work behaviors too. Do you help with those types of things?
Yes, yeah, we do. There's a lot of different services that we can provide to people to assist them on the job. And so a lot of times we call that job coaching, and working with those behaviors on the job. So we can do part of our assessment piece, and we'll talk about that later. Part of our assessment piece are workplace assessments. So we can get people into the job, and we can pay for their first 2 to 3 weeks on the job and help them, you know, navigate and not have it be on the employer's money. It would be more on our money, but we're also paying for either a job coach during that time period or just seeing if this job fit is good for them. A lot of times people have an idea of what they want to do, and if they have the education and we can get them into that work setting, and then they start doing it, then they decide, or they might find out, wow, yeah, this isn't what I thought, right? How many times have we in general gotten into a job and thought, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, right? So yeah, if you want to go to the next slide, it will define what disability is for you. So a disability defined, and you are protected through the ADA if it substantially limits one or more major life activity. So, you know, that would be, you know, standing, walking, moving, you know, anything that's a major life activity that you have to do. It also includes people who have a record of impairment, even if they don't currently have a disability or associated with somebody who has a disability. And so what that means is, like, say you have an IEP, but it was so long ago, so that person does still qualify and is protected under the ADA. And it's kind of like how we talked about before, you know, if somebody is just acting or you feel like there's something off about them, that would make somebody eligible and protected. And then as well as associated, so many times businesses, you know, especially in smaller communities, I would think so, or if somebody's doing an interview and they talk about how they have to take care of, you know, their child who has a disability, you can't discriminate against that. Of course, we know that, but we also educate people in that regard. So then that way people don't disclose that, because then they could get discriminated against. But the next slide shows a list of all the different disabilities that a lot of people don't recognize, you know, that maybe they would possibly even qualify for themselves. But are there other questions? I see good chats. I want to be mindful of our time, but then also mindful of everybody's questions.
So yeah, Karen put in the chat, does MRS have a set of companies or a list that are open to working with or hiring people with disabilities?
Yes, yeah, we do. So that's part of what we do at Michigan Rehab in the business side, is so many times people want to hire people with a disability, or they want a diverse background of people in their company, but they don't actually create programs to help retain a diverse background. And so they might get some people in, you know, that have a disability. But a lot of times if you don't educate the staff, sometimes it doesn't work. You know, it's kind of a lot of programs do it for veterans. You know, there's a lot of different programs out there in businesses. And so that's what our goal is at Michigan Rehab, is to help educate businesses on people with disabilities, to help them know that, you know, the average cost of a reasonable accommodation is $500. You know, I mean, it's not, and sometimes it's even smaller. You know, if you're working with a veteran or somebody who has PTSD and they're very jumpy or hyper vigilant, it could simply just be putting a mirror up. So giving them that education, you know, and so, yeah, so we work with, we have a whole different list of businesses that we work with that hire people with disabilities, and that are part of an employer resource group. So a lot of times, like if you go to employer resource groups, you can see what type of businesses are involved, like Disability In, like a lot of our federal contractors, they have to pay money into resource groups, employment resource groups. And so a lot of times when people have those, they typically have a reasonable accommodation process set up. So I mean, you could access a list through there. We don't have certain lists of businesses out there that we put. I mean, I work with a lot of them myself, and you know, I could tell you who's been really helpful and successful in this area in Michigan. But because we're a state agency, it's hard for us to say and give businesses like a stamp of approval, right? So a lot of times that's left for Michigan Diversity Council, or the bigger, the diversity groups out there have lists of businesses out there to look into. But yeah, so if you want to go to the next slide, this actually gives you an idea of what we're dealing with and what you all have shared in terms of working with your students. So if you look at this slide, 1 out of 4 people will acquire a disability in their lifetime, right? As we age, things just we're not as fast, sometimes, we get older and that happens. But I wanted to point this out specifically because in here, that blue is Michigan. So in terms of mobility, cognitive, hearing, vision, self-care, you can see that we are at the higher end of that spectrum of working with people with disabilities and having that difficulty. And so it's important because it's essentially, that's probably what you guys are experiencing a lot, is noticing that people do need extra help and do need extra care. And so that's where we could come in and try to assist.
So there's a couple of questions that are in the chat.
Yeah.
And one I think I can answer. I think from I think Cheryl put it in
Yeah.
there about working with accommodations and everything with GED testing service.
Yeah.
And so we haven't had personally at Wyoming that same type of maybe misfortune. And the question is, for extended time on GED testing, we were told the IEP had to be within 3 years. I'll have to get you that information and maybe we can do this in the follow-up, but I had attended a COAID conference, and at COAID, the lady who was in charge of approving all the disabilities, we built a relationship with her. We haven't had that type of issue. We've worked with, Charlene and others about reclassifying, I don't know if that's it, or making sure that folks would then be able to get their accommodations done. And so that's something that we can look into. And I think Patrick will probably have a list of all of these, all the folks who are participating today, and we can send that information out. But we've had maybe better luck on that with GED testing services on that side. And so
I want to say something. I've been doing this for 5 years though, and I have things, and I'm in charge of this, the accommodations and the testing in general for all the students. And it's been more than once that that GED has said that to us, and I have it in writing. They say, no, they have to get retested. Qualify for extended time accommodation.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not done then. I'm going back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing too, I mean, if you're working with somebody who needs a time accommodation on a GED task and you're looking for assistance, Michigan, and a lot of times that's our rule of thumb too. We can't take an IEP and use that to make somebody eligible for services. We need a new IEP. So we will do testing.
That is good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if you reached out in your area and said, hey, trying to work, this person who's working or this person who's going to be looking for work, we need accommodation on a test, but we need proof that the person needs that extra time. And so,
because I know Lansing will do it for $300.
Yeah. We have, we have psychologists on staff, well, they're not really on staff, but everybody's contracted, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, based on what it is that you're looking for and in which area, so it could be 300, it could be 500. If you're also wanting a personality assessment too, so I mean, a lot of times, yeah, it's based on price. But yeah, no, that's a good point. And in this slide, this was just a thought to change your perception of working with a person with disability and seeing that disability doesn't just include your physical limitations, but you work with the population, you understand the population, And so this is just a slide that we show a lot to our businesses to help them have a better understanding of what disability is, because there's a lot of hidden visibility. So, but I'm just curious, out of curiosity, what do you see as that picture?
Oh, who, me or?
Yeah. What do you see,
Oh,
Cheryl?
I see someone playing a saxophone.
Right. Okay. Does anybody see anything else?
See, like
Girl's face.
A girl's face.
Yes, I see a girl's face too.
Okay, good. Yeah, so like it's just a little exercise to stop and, you know, like when you're working with somebody who has a disability, a lot of times we might think of, you know, wow, they need a lot of accommodations, or they require a lot of work, or they're struggling, or, you know, a lot of things in that regard. But another thought to think of when working with disabilities or people who have a disability is that the ability part in there is sometimes left out. And so they might have something, you know, there's a lot of different abilities that people can do that are better than other people, right? So like a person with ADHD, you know, they can multitask more, right? You know, so there's a lot of different, it's just a shift in perception. And so when you're working with somebody who's struggling, it's really about it. It's really that game of trying to figure out what they can do and trying to empower them and see their capabilities for themselves as well. And that's what we try to do here at Michigan Rehab, is try to assist with that shift in perception of what they can do and help them change it too. You know, because sometimes, you know, they know that they've been struggling, but it's just about taking that extra time and seeing that different workaround or that different accommodation for them.
We're looking at their strengths and
Yes.
their strengths with what they can do, with what they, you know, would be excellent with. That's what I
Yes.
usually do with all the students I work with.
Good. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the next slide, we talk about all our services. I know we've talked about quite a few of them already, but our number one service that we do provide is the vocational guidance and counseling. All of the counselors on staff are master level counselors. And so in that regard, a lot of times, sometimes when people start working with Voc Rehab, and sometimes it ends up taking longer, because sometimes when customers come in, they see us as counselors, and we are counselors, but a lot of times we end up going off in different conversations talking about different work. And so we do have a lot of referral connections to therapists, but our main goal is to help them go through the rehabilitation process and making them eligible, or helping them see what, you know, just like what you said, Cheryl, in terms of what their capabilities are, what their strengths are. And we do that in forms of assessments, evaluations, and then after you go through what, you know, some of their barriers are, then you can really see where some of their strengths are too. Especially when we do assessments. We can do psych assessments, psychological assessments, as well as mental health and physical. So a lot of times we have in various areas, we have doctor's offices that we can work with. So then that way we can figure out what the person's functional limitations are and capabilities. So then that way they don't get into a job that they can't physically do and retain. And then as well as the employability. So like I said, these business relations positions that are around, and the one that I'm in right now has only been around for 3 years. So, I mean, it's baby steps here in helping educate businesses and people about disabilities in the workplace and how we can assist. And so, you know, we do a lot of different employability skills with them. Trial work experiences, I talked a little bit about that, talked about job coaches, and the training. Yes, we do help with certifications, licensures, degrees. We have our school, the MCTI school, and we also provide tools for work, equipment, and like we said before, all those other all those other, it's that medical durable equipment aspect that we talked about. And then we also have the secondary liability insurance. So if a business is nervous about hiring somebody with a disability, we have secondary liability insurance for heart, back, seizures, and diabetes. And so then that way, if something were to happen on the job, then we can get that certification. We usually make that upon eligibility before the person finds employment. So then that way, it helps just the business feel protected in that regard if there are concerns. And we do learning disability assessments as well. So those are really psychological assessments. So we test, most of our psychological evaluations include math, reading, and spelling, that comprehension piece, as well as a full scale IQ. And so most of our psychologists that we have around are able to do that. Do we have any other questions?
And I think, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask one thing. How much does it cost for these assessments?
It's based on which region that you're in. I'm in the Grand Rapids area, so I heard somebody mention 300. That's a good flat standard fee for general psych if you're just looking for a psychological assessment. So like a lot of times when you look at a psychological assessment, it could be learning emphasis or it could be mental health emphasis. And so each of the one would be 300 and the other one would be 300. If you want a full psych, then it could be 500, if that makes sense.
But if they don't have any money, they don't have a job.
Right. Oh, we're paying for this.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So those are the services, that we pay for. We do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's a good, all of these services that you're seeing on the screen are free. Like we pay for them. So assistive technology, I thank you for making that clarification.
I probably was clear to everybody but me, but what?
No. Like, I mean, prosthetics are expensive. Hearing aids are not covered in any insurance program that I know. Priority Health, I heard, is one of the ones that are holding on to it, but you still have like, a $1,500 copay. And, MRS, if you're working and you're struggling on the job, I mean, we had a doctor come in and he needed specialized hearing aids because of, he's a doctor and he has to put that, that thing, stethoscope, is that what it is? Yeah. And so he needed a specialized one, and so we helped him get one. I mean, he helped pay a little bit, but he can afford it, he's a doctor. but seriously, I mean, we have a lot of different we help pay for this. We can help pay for physical therapy. There's just a lot of.
Does it matter the age? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter the age. There's no age limit on this. This is about helping people with disabilities maintain and retain employment.
Thank you.
So, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to put it in the chat or just ask.
Go ahead.
Should I go ahead? Okay. So 2 questions. Number 1, how long does it take for the student or the client to be enrolled before they're able to get a job? And I know that all probably is very relative depending on the person, but just in general, what would be the average time that they can actually be helped with finding a job? And then the second question is, I'm thinking about a particular client who has diagnosed depression and had a fingertip cut off at work, but still is able to work. Personality, professionalism is working. The depression is not stopping them from, well, I can't diagnose that, I'm not a doctor, but the depression is there, but they're still able to work. But they do have that, the amputated part of the finger off. Can you help with like a finger prosthesis and helping them find a job because of both that and the depression?
Yeah. If the finger is causing a delay in his performance, that's something that we can do. I worked with a woman who had a partial foot amputation.
Wow.
So we connected her with Mary Freebed, And she was also, actually, she was in school. She was going for like medical billing and coding, trying to switch from nursing to medical coding and billing, right? Because I mean, nurse on your feet all day, and a half foot amputee is, I mean, it's difficult. It's very rarely done. But yeah, no, that is a good question. We can assist with stuff like that in regard to that. To answer your other question in terms of how long it takes, it's really based on how long it takes to get the medical information. Sometimes if we have a psych eval, you know, 4 to 6 weeks out, but sometimes, you know, 2 to 3 weeks out. So really, I mean, once we get an application in, we have 30 days to make somebody eligible. And then once you make somebody eligible, then you actually have 60 days. We get 2 months to get medical documentation because it can take 4 to 6 weeks to get a doctor's information, get mail back, you know, that kind of stuff. But I got to tell you though, since COVID, a lot of people are more into, we'll electronically send these to you script wise instead of mailing them. So I mean, like COVID's done some bad things, but I mean, in that regard, sometimes it's helped. Okay, you know, we're not making copies, like you have to pay for copies and it's so expensive, right? It just sucks. So now, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that word, but
we understand.
But yeah. And so now, I mean, it opens that door up. So that's a really good question. I do want to be mindful of our time. So if you can go to the next slide, this really talks about how Oogie and I have done things and work together. So we have a referral system set up. We have an MRS counselor assigned. So a lot of times, you know, if other people are like, who do I get connected? You know, we now have a counselor assigned to Oogie staff. So they have to, you know, they just connect with Stacy and then they get going. For across the region though, it would be best to get connected to your MRS office and you get assigned, you have to go through the orientation and then you get assigned a counselor and then go through there. So part of the relationship that Oogie and I have had, it's really just been finessing to get to this point. And then just doing various trainings together. And then because he has, I'm not sure if other areas have an ESL program, but I've connected his ESL program with other businesses because our businesses, I have some of the businesses I've worked with, they've had difficulty with ESL in the workplace. And so I've been able to connect some of my business partners to Oogie and his staff to help them retain their employment. And they're not with MRS, you know, the employees that the business is working with. I don't know if Oogie's still on. I know I have to pop off in 12 minutes, but yeah, I mean, if you wanted to cover more of this, or, I mean, we had a lot of good discussion.
Yeah, for us, it's just really been like we started, blossomed out of a friendship with Charlene and I. And we've just, I have my social worker who works directly with Stacy. That just happened this past week that we, you know, brought kind of our two teams together. And this Friday during our PD day, we'll have introduced Stacy to our staff. And so they're going to join us in our Zoom meeting. And so all of our teachers and instructors will know that. And really, we've left it up to Stacy and our social worker for those two to be the direct conduit for assistance. So that was really easy. But early on, or maybe last year when we first started, myself, our outreach, community outreach coordinator and our social worker presented to the MRS staff because they are referring some of their clients who need educational services directly to us. And so again, just for it to be easy, they can call our registrar in our office and we will immediately sign those folks up. Again, for us, there's no cost to our programs. And so we really are creating a true partnership, you know, just not a one-way street where we're getting things from one side of the table, but we're actually partnering and working together to make sure that all of the folks within West Michigan and Kent County area can receive services. So it's just been really for me a blessing to have Charlene and MRS Services join with some of the things that we did.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what has helped get to the point where we are right now is just the constant communication, like touching base and saying, hey, how's it going? How are things with you? You know what I mean? Just that personal touch, and just that, wanting it to work, and then having understanding that, that we're in this together, right? And it's not just a one-sided. It was so refreshing when Joe, who's the manager at Grand Rapids, and I came over with Oogie and met with your staff, and we're like, hey, this is this a demographic? Is this something that we should be working with? Is this something that we should be trying? And he just went and printed out his list and looked up, oh, we have these many people that are, self-identifying, and so it's wow, like it was so refreshing to see an open, honest conversation. And so, I mean, if you're looking for that connection or looking to go that route or to establish that in your area, I would just encourage that. And then if anybody wants a direct connection, or for me to get you connected to somebody in your area, I mean, you guys, feel free to share my information too.
Any questions at all? And again, I know Charlene has a 3 o'clock Zoom, so she's like the Zoom lady again today. I know a lot of us have been on 3 or 4 of them today, but again, for me, Charlene, again, it has been a wonderful year or more. I can't remember with COVID. It's been a while, but we're just so fortunate to maybe sit down at that table with you that first time. In some of our other circles, and get to know and build this relationship.
Yeah.
And again, it's just been really easy for us. And again, maybe it's just our personalities and stuff that we had, but it was never had a no, never had a barrier or a situation that we didn't sit down and try and think what would be best for the people that we serve. And so I know that you have the heart of servitude, and the rest of Joe and the rest of the folks there too are like spirited people. And I guess for us, we want you to be able to go out if you have any issues or things like that with your local MRS and say, well, it can be done because I've seen it done. Hopefully we can continue to model your vision or our vision, and we really have a shared vision. And as you stated, again, we both received some of these WIOA funds. And so our goals are combined, and so when we're finishing and doing our state report, we're definitely helping each other. So again, appreciate you. Any questions or comments out there in the next 3 minutes? Sorry, it's there's a lot of thank yous in the chat.
Yes.
Again, we'll look and see some of the things that are in there, and Cheryl, I'll look and see on that accommodations part of it. Patrick, that might be something moving forward that we can talk with GED and see if that's a workshop or discussion we can have about some of those accommodations for our folks.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Can I share a website with you guys? I can put it in the chat as well, but there's a website called askjan. I think it's org or .com. I'll have to look it up on my phone, but what that is it's a website where you can go to. JAN stands for Job Accommodation Network. And what you can do is you can go in there and type in a disability, type in a functional limitation that you're experiencing or your student's experiencing, and then it will give you a list of ideas of all these different accommodations that you can do for an individual. And then you can even look up job titles to compare it with. And so, I mean, if you have an individual that isn't sure about getting another agency involved, or maybe, they are ESL and their English isn't as good and they're just not, they're nervous and they don't want to reach out to a different entity. Because I understand you get in your little bubble and you just want to work with, you know, you just want to work with Oogie, right? You don't work with anybody else, and just Oogie's my guy, right? And so that's just another website that you guys can go to and type in a limitation or type in a concern or medical diagnosis, and then it'll give you ideas of what symptoms somebody with a diagnosis might have that they're experiencing, and it will help educate you on how to help, but then it also helps empower them and helps them as well. Because a lot of times I've had people reach out and they don't know how to ask for an accommodation, and they don't know maybe what accommodation they need. So you can go to that website and check it out. So I do thank you so much for everybody's time. I love the interaction and all the questions. You know, if there's anything else, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you. I'm looking at the website now. It looks good.
Good, good. Yeah, so it is the right one.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much, both
Thank you.
Charlene and Oogie. We really appreciate both of your time. And I think the takeaway from this is just that, you know, we need to do a better job of coordinating and replicating this type of collaboration more broadly across the state. And however we can continue to do to help everybody do that, I think will be really important. So thank you again. If you didn't get a chance, remember to put your PIC in the chat box if you need sketches, or send me an email ASAP so I can get that registered for you. Again, thank you to Charlene and Oogie for your time, your expertise. And I hope we'll see you all next week at our virtual fall conference. We do potentially have one pending PD out there on the December calendar. We're still kind of weighing our options on if people are PD'd out this fall yet. So we're kind of gonna look for some feedback from you all. But we'll be back at the very latest in January to offer some more quality PD. So take care, everybody. I hope you are well, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you, Oogie. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks so much, Charlene.